Hello, you're watching Smart Money, and today, Deputy Governor of the South African Reserve Bank, Mampho Modise, joins us more specifically to home in on the role she plays overseeing the financial stability cluster, which now includes the newly established Corporation for Deposit Insurance. So, thank you so much, Deputy Governor, for joining us today. And it was a bit of a mouthful there, right? So, right at the top, I want to take a step back just for you to talk us through what exactly we're looking at here, why the Corporation for Deposit Insurance was created, and what exactly it does.
Thank you so much for having me. I think the excitement is kicking in at the SARB because we're celebrating 1 year. But basically, KODI is a deposit insurance where we protect the most vulnerable in our society. In an event when a bank fails, depositors are protected. And this is a step forward in making sure we protect the financial stability of the system. The reason why we decided on deposit insurance is that depositors really struggle to get their money if there is a bank failure, and we wouldn't want our vulnerable to suffer if there's something that we can do about it. Therefore, we decided as the Reserve Bank, let's introduce a deposit insurance scheme. If we manage it as the SARB, the cost of the scheme becomes lower, and we are responsible by law to provide such security for our depositors.
So, bottom line, depositors' funds stand protected in the event of bank failure, right? How is it being funded? And a year since its launch, what strides have been made in actually securing the funding necessary for the Deposit Insurance Fund?
The way in which the fund is funded is quite easy. It's like a normal insurance. It's premiums. We charge banks premiums of 0.02, something very small. We're planning to build the funding over time. Secondly, we're funding it through the levies, and the levies are mainly to manage KODI and to run the operations. And for now, we have what we call a liquidity tier. In simple terms, the banks are borrowing KODI money just in case something happens. And in the deposit insurance fund, we have 19 billion so far, which is sufficient to even deal with medium-sized banks. So we did make enough strides, and we do have 19 billion in the bank.
You know, as much as you note that success, Deputy Governor, we have to note the coverage limit this puts on all of this, though. So, how much coverage of depositors' funds does this actually afford?
So basically, we're covering up to 100,000 per depositor per bank. How we calculated the 100,000 is that we went to all the banks to look at the data, and we looked at how much the typical depositors have in their account. And the 100,000 actually covers 95% full amount of covered depositors. So it means 9 out of 10 depositors will get their full amount because they have less than 100,000 in their bank account.
And are private insurers allowed to insure bank deposits as well?
They can. I mean, they have different products in the market. For example, you get insurance in case you passed on and you have to pay the bond and all of that. But for us, this is specifically one, to protect the vulnerable in our society, but two, to avoid systemic banking failures. So if the depositors are protected and they hear the news of a bank in trouble, because they know they are protected, they won't go and withdraw the money and cause a systemic failure in the banking system. So the focus here is to make sure that we implement reforms that will protect the banking system.
Right. Got it. Does the CODI only insure deposits against bank failure, Mampo, or are there other circumstances that could lead to a payout potentially?
Main will be for bank failure.
Okay, so if a bank were to fail, then how would an individual claim from CODI, and how quickly could individuals expect a claim payment?
So, the work that we're currently doing now in KODI, which is critical, is to get the banking details of the depositors, to get the banks to update these informations, these details. And I would like to even emphasize to the viewers that please go and update your banking details. KODI is now working with the banks to update this information, and we will have it in our database. In case of an unlikely event of a bank bank failure, KODI will contact the depositors itself, and we will make sure we keep the depositors updated. What we have picked up now is that because of how we are investing the money, we will need 20 working days to get access to the funding, but we are planning on reducing that to 7 days, especially for those who are vulnerable. So the work that is ahead for us in the next year is to reduce that 20 days to 7, and making sure that we invest in liquid investment, but also get the details to be updated so that we as KODI can contact the depositors and they don't have to worry about how to contact KODI.
Remember, all of that said, you have a Paybox Plus mandate, which gives you additional responsibilities beyond simply paying out insured deposits, right? So give us a better sense of that broader role that KODI has to play.
So the pay box, what it means is, as KODI, you can either pay the depositors in case of a bank failure, or you can intervene in a resolution of a bank. A resolution of a bank means if we see there are problems in the bank, the Prudential Authority and others intervene in the bank. KODI can be part of those people that intervene in the bank, and basically they can provide guarantees to the bank, they can provide loans to the bank to avoid a systemic failure. So it just means KODI can, its core mandate is to pay depositors, but there are ways in which you can help a bank to avoid it failing and taking other banks, and KODI has a role to play in that instance.
And overall, Deputy Governor, this is a mechanism used to, boost or enhance financial stability in the country, as you've been emphasizing, right? By readying the banking system for a possible worst case eventuality, but also seeing KODI play a more proactive role in managing bank failures and mitigating systemic risks. So how do you see KODI contributing to increasing trust, but also the resilience within South Africa's banking sector? And what are some of the next steps for KODI from here on out?
So the first part of the question, I think what is key is the twin peak models, because this is where it all started. Where in 2008 we saw the massive bank failure, and we looked at our systems and we identified gaps. Now, to close the gaps, we have the Prudential Authority, which is responsible for regulating banks, but we also created what we call a Financial Sector Conduct Authority that looks at the market conduct, and it protects the customers. And then the next step was to create KODI, where you have depositors that are protected, and it avoids the run of the banks where people go and take out everything because they're worried about a particular bank. And what that does is, if a bank is big and people are going to take out the money, it impacts on the smaller banks. Therefore, instead of having one bank that is in trouble, we end up with 5 banks that are in trouble. So having KODI will protect the banking system against that, and it will protect the smaller banks. As I said, I think for us the key is to build trust, is to be transparent, is to communicate as KODI and reach out every customer, especially in the rural areas. It's to encourage depositors to go and update their information so that they know that KODI has their details. So for us, for the next year, is making sure that we have depositor information, but also, as I specified earlier, reduce the payout times from 20 days to the 7 days.
Got it. Well, let's leave it then. We'll certainly be keeping eye on, that growth and development occurring there. Thanks so much, Deputy Governor, for having joined us in conversation today. Of course, Mampho Modise is Deputy Governor at the South African Reserve Bank.